Room 154. It's January the 5th, about 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And will you call the roll, please?
Representative Banta.
Here.
Representative Bentley. Here. Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Branscombe.
Here.
Representative Bray.
Present.
Representative Brown. Representative Dossett.
Present.
Representative Flannery.
Here.
Representative Fleming. Representative Freeland.
Present.
Representative Fugit.
Here.
Representative Gentry. Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative McPherson. Representative Palumbo.
Here.
Representative Raymond. Representative Riley. Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Vice Chair Reed.
Here.
Chair Petrie.
Here. Welcome to everyone. Anyone have any special guests that they want to introduce? Just checking. Don't see anybody seeking recognition. If everyone will, make sure we have our devices turned off, cell phones, laptops, all those things, so we don't make any unintended noises, or at least attempt not to. We've got 3 items up on the agenda for today. We've got House Bill 1, House Bill 2, and House Bill 8. We do have mandatory training at 10 a.m. In a room nearby, so I intend to finish some way, somehow by 10 minutes before the hour. With that said, we have House Bill 1, an act relating to income taxation, sponsored by Representative Brandon Reed. If you will, introduce yourself for the record, please.
Representative Reed, representing the 24th House District.
Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. First, House Bill 1 codifies for clarification the conditions laid out in House Bill 8 from the 2022 regular session. It has been met and certified by the executive branch, resulted in a personal income tax rate being reduced from 5% to 4.5% on January 1st, 2023. Second, House Bill 1 codifies for implementation of the second rate reduction, which has been certified by the executive branch and will reduce the personal income tax rate from 4.5% down to 4% on January 1st, 2024. Motion on the bill.
Representative Raymond. And just a moment, if anybody has a question or comment, just try to get the attention of staff so we can get you on a list and make sure we get to everybody, okay? Representative Raymond.
Thank you. Representative, I'm looking at the fiscal note, and I see an impact in 23-24 of $315.8 million. Annual impact at full implementation indeterminable. What's the plan to pay for this bill?
I'll defer to the chairman of the Appropriations House Committee. This isn't necessarily a pay-for implementation. This is simply the reduction from House Bill 8. The first reduction automatically happened on January 1st, and then the second one will happen on January 2024. But for further explanation or future intentions, I'll refer to the chairman if he wants to say anything.
I think you're right. The other thing you've got is this bill does not contain a pay-for. House Bill 1 does not contain a pay-for, but it's only a rate reduction.
Then may I follow up, please?
Please.
Can I get reassurance that with a reduction in the state income tax and state revenue, we know that more than 40% of the general fund comes from income tax, that we'll still be able to meet the obligations of government, public education, Medicaid, public safety? My worry is that...
I will point you back on that point to CFG that just recently met, that still has increasing revenues even after taking account for this dip off of the income tax to begin with. Our revenues will continue to increase according to CFG.
One more, please. many people predict recession. How would a recession impact this measure?
I think would actually help this measure because it's putting more money back into the hardworking Kentuckians across the Commonwealth. They'll be able to spend their money like they see fit. They'll be able to pay down debt. They'll be able to save for their families and spend as accordingly. We are budgeting to our needs and not our wants here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We've done that several last budget sessions, and especially in 2022, and it's working out tremendously. We have a surplus upon a surplus. And I think this plays right into the hands of our hardworking Kentuckians to save and spend down debt in their families.
Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give a historical perspective, and I appreciate Representative Reed, his explanation on the situation, but I want to give a background. If people recall, back in 2018, we did a first phase of tax modernization, and when you look at the numbers of 2019, $500 million were put into our coffers in terms of increasing the situation in terms of our revenues. So that's basically shifting from income to sales, and I think as we continue to do that, as the vice chair mentioned, we're putting more money in people's pocket, and they're going to spend it, or they'll save it, or they're invest it. And so those are things that we're seeing materialize based on our prudent perspective in terms of getting more money in people's pocket. So we already have proof in the pudding when it comes to that money going back into the revenues to increase things overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the next one, Pam Thomas, are you in the room? I think I saw you earlier. If you will, come on up to the table, introduce yourself. You've asked to speak on House Bill 1. I want to make sure we get to that before we go through any more questions. If you'll introduce yourself for the record. Make sure that light is really green and make sure the mic is really close.
Now really green, and is it close enough?
I think so.
All right.
All right, if you'll raise your right hand.
I don't know my right from my left. I have to think about that.
I think you got the correct one. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you,
Please
sir.
proceed. Thank you.
Chairman Petrie and members of the A&R Committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. As I just noted, my name is Pam Thomas, and I'm a senior fellow with the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. I spent most of my career staffing this committee. I know a lot of you, but some of you are new and you probably don't know me. I started with A&R in 1991, and then I retired in 2016. One of my primary roles over all of the years I worked at LRC was to help you understand the policy implications of the decisions that you make. And I loved my job because I really felt like I was making a difference. I come before you today with this background to ask you to reconsider the practical and policy implications of continuing to move forward with additional income tax cuts that are in House Bill 1. From a fiscal standpoint, as you've heard, things are really good right now. Revenues are strong, the Budget Reserve Trust Fund is at a record level. But that's the case for most states, not just Kentucky. The many billions in federal pandemic and spurred a fast recovery. Inflation is at a higher level than it has been in 40 years. But those causes of higher tax revenues are coming to an end. Forecasters don't predict the same growth going forward, and many fear a recession on the horizon. It's interesting to note that without the income tax, we wouldn't have the significant Budget Reserve Trust Fund that we currently have because the income tax accounted for 47% of the revenues above projections. Last session, you enacted a budget that began to restore some of the funding that has been reduced through the many rounds of budget cuts following the Great Recession and continuing till just a few years ago. You started to address the state workforce crisis by providing significant salary increases with the promise of more, and you made critical investments in many other areas. A great first step to recognizing the importance of investing in the people of the Commonwealth. But as you also know, much remains to be done. There's a critical teacher shortage, affordable child care isn't readily available across our state, the Department of Juvenile Justice and the children it serves are suffering greatly because of their inability to adequately staff their facilities. Much more investment is needed to help the people in eastern and western Kentucky recover from tornadoes and floods. The list goes on and the needs are great. My concern about the continued reduction of the income tax rate is that the formula on which the cuts are based is static, backwards facing, and based on a single year. It doesn't consider the future or the context within which revenues are raised, and the recent elevated collections are temporary and will likely not continue. But as you know, tax cuts are permanent and they will result in a major loss of revenue. The general fund will lose over $1.2 billion annually when the cut goes from 5% to 4% and it's fully phased in, and that takes a little while because of the way the taxes work. For scale, that's more than the $1.1 billion you've appropriated for the entire system of higher education, so it's a huge hit. And for most individuals, other than those in the top 20%, the money they keep as a result of the cut is small. Kentuckians who are under the poverty line will receive no benefit at all from these tax cuts because they don't pay income taxes. Yet the sales tax is a much bigger share of that family's budget than it is for you or I. The typical Kentucky family, those in the middle class, like most of us, will retain between 38 cents and $5 a week from the reduction from 5% to 4%. Hardly noticeable in day-to-day life. So there's a huge gap in the loss of revenues at the state level and what that means that you cannot do compared with the actual benefit to most individuals and families in Kentucky. And you know there's not a lot of other room within other taxes to make up for the lost revenue when that need arises. The only big exemption left in the sales tax is for groceries, and that's one of the few exemptions that makes that tax less regressive. And if you took that up to the full 6%, you'd only make up half the loss of revenue from the sales tax cut. The sales tax rate on our existing base from all purchases would have to be raised to 7.4% to make up the lost revenues, and that would give us the highest sales tax, state-level sales tax in the country. There simply aren't a lot of other places to go to raise revenue in Kentucky. We don't have the huge tourist base like Tennessee, Nevada, and Florida, and we don't have oil and gas like Texas, Alaska, and Wyoming. And I mention those 6 states because they're 6 states that don't have an income tax. And one of the reasons they do without an income tax is because they have these other things that they can do. So it's really important to remember that our economy and where the money comes from in Kentucky is very different from other states, and that's a very important consideration in thinking about as you move forward. If you ask your constituents, both businesses and individuals, what they want and expect from you as the leaders who decide how state dollars are spent, I believe they'll tell you they want good, strong public schools, access to affordable childcare, safe drinking water, and roads that don't have potholes. They'll tell you they want their fellow Kentuckians who've fallen on hard times and need help to receive help. And when we all stop and think about it, isn't that what we all want for ourselves, our families, and each other? I've been part of and observed our state budget process for over 3 decades now, and based on that experience, I think there are significant risks that our state's continued ability to do these things. And I think they'll be severely compromised moving forward by the cuts in our income tax, which is the source of 41% of our general fund revenue. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Always good to hear from you. I appreciate the creative take on it, but I do want to make sure that everybody understands this. I do, and I mean this in all sincerity. I like talking with you because you're very much interested, you're genuine about what you're trying to understand and trying to convey, and I do appreciate that so very much. But there's a fundamental difference in your 3 decades and what we're doing now. The 3 decades that you were involved in were woefully bad economics for Kentucky. The numbers are there. We're not going to continue to that bad track. We have changed. We're not changing. We have changed. We started in 18. We're continuing that change. And things have played out well. For those that were Chicken Little, I'm not mentioning you, for those that were Chicken Little in 18 when we made the first change, it was all going to hell in a handbasket. It's 23. We've made record investments across the board. We no longer go into budget and go, how much money we got? How much can we spend? We go into budget now and say, what are the needs? The actual needs, not the wants of members or special interests. We look at what those needs actually are and we budget to that. We've done that very firmly for at least 2 cycles now, very firmly, if not 3, but 2 I can speak to. And when we finish that budget process, there are excess funds, not to be confused with the fiscal year surplus. There are excess funds that we are able to tuck away after we make record investments in the things that this caucus believes is best for Kentucky and has since 2017. And I will tell you, I will continue to talk with you, and I'll continue to talk with anybody else that has a different take, because I always like to learn another angle on something. But there are some fundamentals that have just changed and aren't going back. because we're doing well and we're going to continue to do well. We're going to do even better. And next up, we have Representative Palumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I just make some comments, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. This particular piece of legislation hurts lower income Kentuckians and helps the wealthier, higher income Kentuckians. It is not sustainable. Future legislators will have to raise taxes, and we are not being fiscally responsible when we are looking to the future and hurting lower income Kentuckians. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I do appreciate that, but I'm not going to let it go unresponded to. We heard this in 18. You're going to have to raise taxes. You're going to have to raise taxes. Well, we continue to expand the base, but we're not making pay-fors. It's not a one-for-one. And as of yet, again, that was in 18 and we're in 23 and we're not raising taxes and the rate of the sales tax remains the same. We have every intention of continuing with that same tax rate, especially because we've got issues at the local level we're trying to leave space for in case there's something to be done for their health. And I heard this in 18 and I continue to hear it. Going to raise taxes. You're going to have to raise taxes. Everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. You're going to have to raise taxes. And I admire you. I respect you. But that narrative is just so bad for the public. I mean, we're 5 years in, and I'll wait for the 6th year, the 7th year, the 10th year, and the 15th year where everybody's still saying we're going to have to raise taxes. Everything's going to hell in the handbasket while we continue doing what we're doing, and we're still not raising taxes. Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Mr. Chair, I want to apologize for being a couple minutes late today. I got caught on I-64 there, but I have a question. Maybe I don't know if this should go to you or Representative Reed, but just some very basic common sense questions. Just a couple. Number one, I'll just go on and ask you if you want to bring Representative Reed up. He can answer it. Either one's fine. But and I see we have a fiscal note that has been revised, so I've been briefly going through that real quickly. But can you tell me exactly what the cost is of going down to 4% in total, what we are projecting, and where are we getting the replacement revenue specifically? Because I know we created 35 new sales taxes on services, and that's in addition to the 41 or whatever we created in 18. So if you could just very basically tell me how much money we're creating through the new taxes that we created and how much we are using budget trust fund money to pay for what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm going to catch that if you don't mind. Is it okay? First off, if you look at the fiscal note and take it for what it is, it's a best guesstimate at this point. They are equating a 0.5 point reduction of the individual income tax to about $316 million. I think it's 315.8 was the last number I saw. And that's always a number that's in flux, but that gives you an order of magnitude what to associate it with. That would be over a full year. It would be 632. They're looking at a half year of a 0.5 point. Okay? So that's why your number is going to be off. So to answer how much is it going to cost, I think that's a false question, but I understand what you're trying to get at. Like how much revenue would we lose from what we are getting right now or anticipating right now? So a half a year on a 0.5 point would be about 315.8 is my understanding is what they're estimating. And that is always a change of figure. In 2018, I think that figure was closer to 200, 250, or maybe a little higher than that for a 0.5 point and a half year. So it's always a changing factor. And then the next question is how much is it going to cost? And then my question would have to be back to you, to use your phrase of cost, over what time period? Because you can't answer that without what kind of time period we're talking about. And you have to make sure we're clear on whether we're talking calendar years or whether we're talking fiscal years.
Okay, if you'll allow me.
Yes.
let's just talk about going from 4.5 to 4%. So we're talking about, I guess, 224 calendar year. Is that correct?
That, according to House Bill 1 language, and please correct me if I understand this incorrectly, House Bill 1 codifies the cut that has already taken place and gone
Correct,
into effect
which is the 5 to 4.5. But we're trying to go to 4 for 24.
Well, I'm making sure that on House Bill 1 for the public that's listening in, they understand that there are two things happening in this bill. One is codifying for clarification that individual income tax rate did in fact reduce by a half point from 5 to 4.5 on January 1, 2023, effective that date. That's what the bill clarifies. That's one. Number two, it gives approval for the next reduction from 4.5 to 4% that would be effective on January 1, 2024, to go ahead and allow that to take effect and codify that also. And the reason I say allow it to take effect is that, as you know, House Bill 8 set triggers, conditions that had to be met in the Commonwealth of Kentucky economically before a rate reduction of the individual income tax could occur. OSBD and DOR, Office State Budget Director, and Department of Revenue have both certified that those conditions have been met, and this takes the action to say, yes, we want both of these to be codified.
Okay, and the second half of that question was basically, okay, we got 315 million, 630 million, or whatever it is over the two periods. How much of that? How much revenue is being created by the new service taxes from HB 8, and how much does that leave to fill this gap with surplus monies? I'm assuming that's where that's coming from the trust fund?
The assumption is incorrect, but I understand the question.
Okay. Well, please enlighten me on where that money's coming from.
Be glad to. House Bill 8, the triggers are set, and we're going to be moving forward and going down. Okay, we're good there, right? As far
I don't know
as,
about good, but
well,
yeah, I understand.
The
what you're
question
saying. Yes,
is, I guess the question really in the room is: are we in favor of giving tax breaks off of people that are earning wages? Are we in favor of returning money that the Commonwealth of Kentucky does not need? Which gets to the question of the incorrect assumption of how much money we're taking.
But we're replacing taxes.
Let me finish.
We're creating.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We've created new taxes as a partial replacement.
We have with
partial. Service. We tax services.
Okay, I'm going to give you the explanation if you want it.
Sure.
Okay. So
beautiful.
Partial money, additional revenues will be coming in based on an expansion of the sales tax base. And to your question, the fiscal note that looked at that last year for House Bill 8 purposes had first estimated around $150 million. Okay, so that's not going to replace $630 million over a year period, 12-month period. So it's not meant to be a pay for. So then it draws you to the next thing, which I find most people incorrectly go to. So how much money are we pulling out of the budget reserve trust fund in order to offset this and pay for it? And that's where people have just missed what I tried to make clear a moment ago. We are putting away money into the reserve trust fund because we are budgeting below our means. So we're not going to have to take money out of a reserve trust to backfill a hole because our needs don't get us to a high level. Our needs get us to a level where we have way more revenue coming in and projected revenue coming in. And even when, don't know when, but even when we hit a downturn and our revenues decrease, we have a lot of downward cushion in the revenue stream before you even have to think about tapping a reserve for bad times. Now understand, that's a full picture. That reserve is there as a backstop. And at the same time, in the last two budget cycles, we've also put more money and got record funding into the unemployment insurance trust. So what happens when downturns come? Unemployment, correct? Okay, that's what you expect. Heretofore, this General Assembly, along with the executive branch, has not had an effective reserve account and has not had UE or unemployment insurance trust fund that was of any substance. The last two cycles we've had downturns, 700 to 800 billion we had to borrow from the federal government to shore up our unemployment insurance fund. We have that much in there now. and we're adding to it. So we've got the cushion over there. Don't have to tap budget reserve for that. Then we're budgeting within our means. Someone's going to have to get their head wrapped around what budgeting within your means, what that actually comes down to. That means there's money there that you don't use. That means you have a surplus built into your budget, which goes into your reserve, and if your revenues exceed what's projected, you end up with another surplus at the end of the fiscal year. Just making sure people don't get those two confused. If you want the full, there is a concept of if you want less of something, tax it more. If you want more of something, tax it less. So those people that are industrious and want to have wage income or income that would be subject to the individual income tax, then let's pull that rate down a little bit. One, because we don't need the money in state government. It's better that they have it and let it churn in local economies under their choices, not ours. It's just a healthier system that way. Any follow-up? I want to give you a chance.
So the answer to the question is a little less than 500 million. That's coming from trust, that is coming from extra monies. I understand you budgeted less to create more in trust fund money. So, but 150 million is coming from the new taxes.
The fiscal note that was set for House Bill 8 in 2022 session first estimated around 150.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Dawson. Before we go to that one, we've got a few more, and I understand, and I've got a feeling we'll be able to talk about it on the floor also. This is a known entity, a known issue before we ever got here. This is a follow-up, a continuation of House Bill 8 that we talked about a lot last year. We still have that hard stop at 10 minutes till, and we've got two more bills to get to. So, Representative Dawson.
Very brief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very brief. The chairman and I share common borders there with Christian and Todd counties. Not only do we share those borders, but also we border the state of Tennessee as well. And I think sometimes it's hard for some of the members here to understand what we see on a daily basis, the chairman and myself do. In 1970, the population of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and Clarksville, Tennessee were almost identical, right at 20,000 citizens each. Today, the population of Hopkinsville is 31,000. The population of Clarksville, Tennessee, which has a zero income tax, is 166,000 citizens. Our goal is to grow this Commonwealth. By growing the population, it grows our tax base. We see this on a daily basis, just looking out our back doors. Where I live, I'm within 10 miles of the Tennessee state line. And I see this on a daily basis. Our goal is to lower the income tax, to encourage individuals to want to live in Kentucky, become a part of our tax base, which is going to grow our local governments, our revenue coming there, to our school districts, and to the state. So I'm happy to support this. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Reed, for what you're doing. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Chairman.
I'll remind you of our time
Yes,
constraints.
sir. Very briefly. Just one quick point. This conversation we've had this morning seems to presume that there's no additional revenues coming into the state for any reason other than, or that the only thing we have available is the trust fund. And yet just last night, our governor spent several minutes listing business after business that is either coming into Kentucky, creating additional revenues for our state, or growing their business in Kentucky, creating additional revenues for our state. So to say that we only have the trust fund that we can go to balance the changes in revenue from the tax reduction is just not accurate. The truth of the matter is our state is growing economically, and that's part of the process that we put in place with the policies that we started in 2017. They're now coming to fruition. So to say that we don't have additional revenues to allow for us to give an income tax reduction to our hardworking citizens is just not accurate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I see no other representatives. Oh, sorry. Got one more item on the list, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I look at the fiscal note, it comes to my attention that the 2023 impact is a negative $315.8 million. And what concerns me, and I think the elephant in the room is the annual impact at full implementation is indeterminable. That concerns me, and I think it should concern all Kentuckians. So as we look at House Bill 1, I'm concerned about that going forward. So that would be a concern.
And it's a good pickup on that fiscal note, the way it's set up. I understand that CFG only projects out so far, and so when they run the fiscal notes to a certain point, they can't give you any more numbers, and they would have to. Our best guess is, and theirs would be also, is to extrapolate what the current cost is of a cut, what it equates to, and what it would be for a full year and out into the future. Again, I go back to 2008, a half a point equated to a dollar figure, which is different than a half point today.
Okay.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes,
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I think numbers and dollars and cents are certainly something that fluctuate and move, but that concerns me. And I would like to have a full understanding of what the annual impact is at full implementation. That would be something that I think we need to have.
Sure. I'll go back to it, and it's a good request. I don't think anyone with the methods in use at the LRC and with CFG would be able to give you that, but they would be able to explain you the limitations of the methodology for the fiscal notes. I would go so far as to say, in my calculations, I look at it as currently, close to current time. If it's approximately $315 million for a half point on a half year, that would generally equate to 630 over a full year for a half point. Mm-hmm. And then as you add a half point on, then you look at that, make sure you coordinate your calendar years versus your calendar tax years versus your fiscal years, and that continues on.
I think one thing, just one thing,
Sure.
Closing, that I think we've got to be concerned, and the taxpayers of the Commonwealth of Kentucky have to be concerned, that the Commonwealth only has a couple of ways to raise funds.
Sure.
And that is through fees and through taxes. And it's important, I think, to make sure that everybody understands this, that the windfall that potentially we will get, or taxpayers in Kentucky will get, as a reduction of state income tax, you pay on one hand or you pay on the other. You rob Peter, pay Paul. So
that is true unless you have budgeting that goes under your means, which is the linchpin of the whole thing.
Okay.
But I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I see no one else requesting. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Saying no one else, if you will call that, please.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Bentley, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Branscombe,
Yes.
Representative Bray,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
No.
Representative Dossett,
Yes.
Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Fleming,
Yes.
Representative Freeland,
Yes.
Representative Fugit,
Yes.
Representative Gentry,
Explain my vote, please.
Briefly, please.
I'm a no today. I'd love to be able to give taxes back. Nobody likes taxes. But this is a step-by-step process that started several years ago, and this is a shift in the tax burden is what this is. We're moving to more of a consumptive-based tax, and that's really good for higher earners, and it actually raises the burden on the lowest of earners. So I'm a no today for the voice for the lowest of earners and the most vulnerable in our state. Thank you.
Representative Hart, Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative McPherson, Representative Palumbo,
No.
Representative Raymond,
No.
Representative Riley, Representative Upchurch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Reed,
Yes.
Chair Petrie.
Yes, and I will say that on behalf of all the taxpayers at every income level who will receive the exact rate cut, I am a yes. House Bill 1 having received 16 yes votes, 4 no votes, will pass with favorable expression that same should pass on the floor. Thank you. House Bill 2 on the agenda. An act relating to the Bowling Green Veterans Center, making an appropriation therefore and declaring an emergency, sponsored by Representative Michael Meredith. And if you will introduce yourself and anyone else at the table, which I think I recognize that. Yep. If you'll introduce everybody. Everybody at the table, please introduce themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Meredith, representing the 19th House District.
And Mike Wilson, representing the 32nd Senate District.
Very good. If y'all will raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is a relatively simple piece of legislation. Many of you who have been in the General Assembly for a few years know about this project. It's a project that was really kind of kick-started in 2012, so it's been worked on for nearly a decade. We passed the first appropriation for this facility in 2016 in the House. In 2017, it got through the entire process. Unfortunately, when you deal with these kinds of things, you have to estimate the cost of these facilities well in advance of actually seeing those projects come to fruition, due to the fact that federal money is involved and it's matching funds between the state and federal to make these facilities happen. With the unprecedented level of inflation in the building market, both at the labor and the materials level, when this project was actually awarded federal funds and bid, it came in well over budget even after we took steps to try to reduce what that cost would be. All of us, when we found that out, first went to our federal delegation, the governor's office, myself, Senator Wilson, and other members of the General Assembly started working with them trying to find a federal solution. Obviously, the federal process happens really, really slowly, and we were going to miss out on these funds coming from the federal government if we did that and have to restart this process entirely. So everybody agreed, the administration, the Finance and Administration Cabinet, the Senate leadership, the House leadership, to go ahead and take this step to fund this out of our funds at the state level to make this happen. We had a groundbreaking in November. The project is already underway. This is just going to complete the project.
I have a motion and a second on House Bill 2. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please call roll.
Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Bentley. Yes. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Branscombe.
Yes.
Representative Bray. Yes. Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Dossett.
Yes.
Representative Flannery.
Yes.
Representative Fleming.
Yes.
Representative Freeland.
Yes.
Representative Fugit.
Yes.
Representative Gentry.
Yes.
Representative Hart. Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative McPherson. Representative Palumbo.
Yes.
Representative Raymond.
Yes.
Representative Riley. Yes. Representative Upchurch.
Yes.
Vice Chair Reed.
Yes.
Chair Petrie.
Yes.
With 20 yes votes, 0 no votes, House Bill 2 passes. Same should be reported favorably on the House floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, call to the table, Representative Jason Petrie. House Bill 11. Representative Petrie, please introduce yourself for the record.
Representative Jason Petrie, State Representative for House District 16.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you. For consideration of the committee, we have House Bill 11, which is a corollary to what was just presented by Representative Meredith and Senator Wilson relative to the increased cost of the Veterans Center in order to keep our budgeting as level as we can, as well as remain close to zero sum without opening the budget but dealing with an emergency need. We identified, I believe, with this committee in the interim form in November with testimony presentation from the Transportation Cabinet regarding their EV charging plan and the interaction of it with federal funds, that the funds that they had requested that were placed in the 2022 budget for a match for federal drawdown of funds for EV charging stations across the Commonwealth was no longer needed because the Transportation Cabinet had developed an RFP method that would have the participants of the RFP provide those matching funds, not the general fund by the General Assembly. So making sure that we had heard that information correctly, we are simply reducing the portion of their administration and support budget, general administration support budget, by the amount that had been allocated toward the EV program for the match. This does not defeat or take away from the EV project. I've spoken with the administration as late yesterday. That's still moving forward, and we will continue to monitor if they were to need general funds, unanticipated at this point. But they do not need this at this point. We take this money out of their support, administration support, and this actually pays for the money we need for the Veterans Center
Motion
that's
on the
being
bill.
placed.
Second. We have a motion on the bill and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we should now proceed to vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Bentley, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Branscombe,
Yes.
Representative Bray, Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Dossett,
Yes.
Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Fleming,
Yes.
Representative Freeland,
Yes.
Representative Fugit,
Yes.
Representative Gentry,
Explain my vote, please.
Yes, very briefly.
Yeah, this is a yes, and it is assumed that the chairman said that the funds are not needed anymore, so they're okay. Thank you. Yes, I'm a yes.
Representative Hart, Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative McPherson, Representative Palumbo,
Yes.
Representative Raymond,
Yes.
Representative Riley, Representative Upchurch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Reed,
Yes.
Chair Petrie.
With 20 votes for, 0 against, HB 11 passes the committee. Same should be reported to the House floor favorably. Is there any to?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
May I make a motion inside the committee that we conditionally put that on the consent calendar in case there ever were to be one today?
Absolutely. That is all the business before the committee. Is there a motion for adjournment? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.